Hi everyone, welcome to the fourth vlog of April. Today, this weekend, we'll be doing an investigation of the Bownessie monster, which I didn't know much about until I spoke to Andy Mcgrath, who specialises in that field, if you like. Also, Darren Howe from the British Bigfoot came along. So today we're going to do a little bit of a Q&A, talk about a few different things, talk about everything from witness culture, the British culture of sort of not talking about things, if you like, and a lot of stuff Darren's been looking into, some arches. Where's that, Darren?
It's in the Lancaster area, Halton. Just off the River Lune.
So this year we plan to really get out and about and do a lot more, the research is going to get out a lot more. There's going to be a lot more filming done, a lot more researchers on the ground. So today we'll talk about a little bit about what we should be doing, what we should be looking for, and talk about a few pet hates as well. That's one of the things we should talk about. Tree structures. Among other things. So, Andy, what can you tell us about what you've been up to, what we've been up to this weekend?
So this weekend we've been looking for the creature of Bownessie, Lake Windermere, called Bownessie, which is a plesiosaur-like animal, like the Loch Ness monster, if you like. Spotted about 9 times since 2006. So we've been doing a little investigation here on the water, through the air as well, bit of drone investigation. And just asking the locals a little bit about what they know about the animal, which and
that went down well, didn't it?
Hasn't turned out to be much actually. But we discussed the cultural implications, haven't we, of seeing something strange in a small rural neighbourhood.
Yeah.
What does it mean to see something strange in a small town like this that survives on tourism and has a local community, and say it? You know, what does it mean to go public with something like that? Especially when you're not a business owner, you're not going to benefit from it.
No.
You know.
No.
So we had a funny chat with our landlord, didn't we? Our Airbnb landlord, about what he would do if he saw the creature, and he seemed quite embarrassed to even talk about it. I thought, you know.
Yeah, I certainly wouldn't be going public to talk about it. Absolutely
Most
not.
people are, aren't they? Everybody you try to get to speak to, they're all, you know, really want. Oh well, yeah. I think I know somebody who might know.
Yeah,
like,
I've got a friend who saw something.
Move you along to.
Wasn't me.
Else.
I didn't see anything.
I've forgotten his name.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that we set up, we had the more professional-looking camera with the small DSLRs. You can sort of get away with being a tourist, but once you pulled a bigger camera out, we had an EX3 with a boom on it. People just sort of avoid cameras anyway. Throw in Andy handing leaflets out about Bownessie sightings, with, you know, beasts of Britain. But I still was surprised at the amount of people that didn't want to talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, we asked them, you know, do you know about the monster? Have you heard of the sightings? Yes, no, what monster? Are you local? Was another question we asked them, and a lot of people said they were local. They'd never heard of it, or they were embarrassed of it. Yeah, sure, something in like a big fish. So it just goes to show that something like this can go quite unnoticed in a big tourist town like this, and really, even when it's, you know, it's good for tourism, it's good to bring people in. People are embarrassed to talk about it.
And certainly the Lake District doesn't need the tourism. It's one of the most visited places in Britain anyway. So the fact that there's been 9 sightings since 2006.
2006. Yeah.
I think that says a lot. And as we were talking about earlier, no technology has been really applied. Other than, you know, night vision drones, but you've got thermal cameras that can be used,
hydrophones, submersible drones, sonar equipment.
And you're saying that they've been effective in other lakes?
In Lake Champlain, they've got some sonar clicks with hydrophones. Obviously, sonar itself has been used effectively in Loch Ness to see many anomalies, but sonars are not always really that descriptive. So it tells you that something is there of a proportionate size. You don't really get a lot of shape with that. So that's one of the ways that we could look at it. Thermal imaging, I think, would be great. Game cams, the 2014 sighting by Ellie Williams.
Yeah.
That was with a game cam. She set the cam up 1-minute intervals throughout the day. Came back at the end of the day. And there she was with a hump monster with a big long swan-like neck. And I think that's probably the best picture there's ever been of a lake monster in this country.
Yeah. Absolutely, I think, and the one thing going against the lake monster in terms of the witness accounts is, unlike Bigfoot, where we have no animals in the woods that can be mistaken for a Bigfoot. Whereas on the lake, you know, it's very rare that you're going to see the full animal out in the open.
Well, that's true.
So you often seals and the catfish.
The Wells catfish that can grow up to 16 feet in some conditions. I mean, they are in this country in limited proportions. They were introduced about 130 years ago. but still, you might get a 6-footer here.
Hmm.
It would be unlikely, and they do have a very serpentine shape, but it wouldn't account for the humps that people see in the
Yeah,
water.
absolutely not.
And
no.
it wouldn't account for this swan-like neck sighting that's been seen once or twice and photographed. So I think, we're looking at the regular monster imposters. You've got the pike, you've got the eel. Eels can be really huge when they're sterile, especially, but they grow in girth rather than length.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't get a 20-foot long eel, but you might get, a 6-foot long eel that's very, very wide.
Even
Yeah.
with the pike and the catfish, they do have a very small fin, but it would be noticeable out of the water.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That
definitely.
would be seen.
There's certain distinctions that you can make, and rule out, these monster imposters.
Yes,
Uh,
yes, definitely. Yeah.
And also, what we mentioned briefly about the some cryptozoologists argue that the plesiosaur, if we say it's a plesiosaur,
Yeah, if it is.
doesn't have
yeah.
the muscle power in the neck to
Yeah.
even extend its neck out of the water. But you said that without actually looking at the muscles
How would you
surrounding
know?
that skeleton,
Yeah.
there's no way of actually proving
So
that.
I call that that's the pervading paradigm of our time, right? That's my little slogan for it. It basically, this is a new discovery that we think, based upon the bones that we have, that this creature wouldn't have the musculature to raise its neck out of the water, or that those particular bones couldn't behave in that way. It's from fossils. We don't have the meat and on top of those bones. So how do we know that this creature, in fact, couldn't do that? We don't know. Now, as researchers, good researchers like Scott Mardis up at Lake Champlain, he'll say, well, perhaps the creature, comes up vertically,
Yeah.
and that's why the neck is able to support itself out of the water. I think it's a good theory, but it's based upon a misdirection, something that's an assumption in the first place.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we call it assumptions based on exclusions. We don't really know that they couldn't. We just suspect that at this time.
So as part of this sort of series of hopeful potential TV series that you're hoping to
Yes,
do called
yeah.
Beasts of Britain,
Yeah.
I'm doing the online series British Cryptids, hopefully. We'll be moving through the sort of various cryptids of Britain,
Yeah.
and I guess we're most familiar with, you and I, Darren, are most familiar with Bigfoot.
Yep.
Oh, British terms probably woodwhorse is probably a better,
Wild
or
man.
wild man.
Wild man,
Yeah, so Darren and I were chatting earlier, we were hoping to get up to Scotland. I won't mention the area, but it's a particular place where there's an habituation site up there. So whilst we won't be on the actual site itself, we'll be in and around that area. And Scotland is, I've always said it for a long time, I think that's where they are. The environment is just perfect for it. And Charmaine,
we're just hoping to see some signs, some evidence that they are around.
yeah, because where we go locally or in these smaller woods, we're finding stick signs, which
Yes.
I don't like. I don't like the stick signs at all.
No.
However, if we can find those same stick signs in these remote places,
Yeah. Well, then you might be onto something.
absolutely, that would really reinforce things,
Yeah.
and that would make me feel a lot better about what we're finding.
Not that you think of Scotland now, so it's about 4 million people, Scotland, 1.9% urban, the whole country. It's a gigantic country, 31,460 lochs and lochans in there, massive mountains and open ranges. A little while ago they were calling for people to move there because they're so underpopulated.
Yeah,
So this is a desolate rural place without much habitation. It's mostly in the cities. I think if you found those stick signs there, they would be valid. And the main problem with the stick signs is that you can find human habitation and human signs around it. So I found some stick signs in Littleworth Common in Isha. They were quite convincing based upon what we think we know. But there was also some great bushcrafting in that same area. So who's to say that the bushcrafting isn't, the grown-ups, the mature bushcrafters, and the stick signs are the kids messing around?
yeah, that's a hard one.
Yeah.
What do you think about let's talk about a little bit about what we think are the more positive stick structures and signs. Now, the arch is quite convincing. The pin, the pinned arches. So, what do you think? What determines what's, in your opinion, what's a genuine? I know we can never 100% prove it, but what rules out nature and what rules out kids, in your opinion?
I mean, the bigger structures, they can say it's like snow load, innit? You know, it drags it down.
Yeah, yeah.
But the ones that we're finding, always seem to have an asterisk on the end. It's pinned down with an asterisk.
Yeah.
Well, that's not just fell in that
Configuration.
matrix, has it? You know.
Yeah.
So are you saying there's a kind of a glyph at the
Yeah.
bottom of the pin?
Yeah.
And that's significant.
I mean, I found 2 at Lancaster Uni, and Daniela has found another one in a different area in the same region. Again, with an asterisk configuration holding it down.
Well, that's significant because John Chick, I think he's writing a book, or at least a small handbook. Probably John said it would be more like a pamphlet as a guide, and he's saying that often these signs, the stick signs, come in twos. So what you'll find is if you find a stick lean at the base of that
Just
stick
follow
lean,
it and you'll find another
you'll
one.
find
Yeah.
another sign. And some of these are so subtle that John shows me, but he can prove it's repetitive.
Yeah.
These signs, he's repeating it in his. I mean, John's. I've said it for a long time. Up in Northumberland, these are key places.
Yeah.
This is
definitely.
a world away from the smaller woods that we're looking at.
Well, if you look at that particular theory that John has there as well, there is a sighting on the British Bigfoot map that matches that. So in Lee Woods in Bristol, somebody sighted in Lee Woods a 6 foot tall, old looking ape like creature digging in the ground with a stick.
Yeah, that's
They
right.
took something out and ate it. Then they wove something together, some sticks together, put it at the side, broke off a tree branch and leant it against the tree and left. So what that person saw was all of those elements put together.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Feeding, habituation, an indication with the stick that something was there to feed upon, or that the creature had been there, and a glyph.
Yeah.
So I think that's, and that's a sighting that came way before we were talking about this kind of stuff. It does involve all of the elements that are believed to be signs of the British Bigfoot.
And it's much easier to log if you've got multiple factors that make what we consider a genuine sign of woodwort or wildman. If you can prove that over and over, that's much more credible, I think, than a random act of nature or a kid, or a bunch of kids, or a wild camper that does this sort of thing, or even the travellers we've talked about before.
Some people in the
That-
travel
that use-
community do apparently employ
Poachers.
some of those signs. Yeah, poachers. Yeah.
That use a particular language in using sticks and elements from nature, not just sticks, plants,
The things that
stones.
your everyday people wouldn't look at, they wouldn't see those things.
It's a very subtle
Yeah.
sort of hidden language, if you like.
If I were doing any of this, I would have passed all of those things by, not paid a second thought to them.
No,
you know?
me too.
And now,
Me too.
Unfortunately, I'm looking in the woods every day.
I think
to
the
see what
glyphs as
turns
well.
out.
I think they're important. I've checked against, like Cub Scouts and things, and there's nothing that the A-glyphs, nothing matches up on those. They're all like directionals with stones, but always in an arrow formation. When kids are making things like that.
Clear man-made.
Yeah, there's just no.
No, John backs that up as well. He says the same thing. He agrees with the glyphs. It's just because I've said it before. There's not enough of us sort of out on the ground to sort of correlate it.
You don't have enough evidence for a database, really, at the moment.
Absolutely not. And as I've said before, not everybody is out with a camera, and not everyone's taking pictures even, of what they find. And I'm just as guilty because I've done it myself.
Yeah, same. I've passed by a lot of things.
I mean, sometimes you're just not prepared for what you find. Often you go out with that mindset, I'm not going to find anything.
Yeah.
And you sort of, I do it, I convince myself that what I am finding is, it's just kids.
Yeah.
Or it's just to be safe. Even that sort of, that behaviour of the skeptics being, conforming. I'm finding myself conforming even though I talk about not doing that.
But I think you have to see it from, you have to see it within the eyes of the critique they're going to aim at you. Does it pass their critique? And it doesn't mean that the critique is correct, but at least that gives you a framework to narrow you in to what is and what isn't real. So you can say, okay, I found something here, it's interesting. What would the skeptics say about this? So let's test out their objections and see if I can pass them myself.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I think that's a good thing. We need the skeptics. We need them to be a bit nicer, maybe, but we still need them because being skeptical helps us avoid these problems of misidentification. Same with the lake monster thing. You need to be skeptical about it because it's a big ask to ask people to believe. Even when there's a sighting, there's a picture, there's film footage, it's still a big ask because it could be something else. So you've got to establish it. How could it be here? What's the reason for it? And what's going behind these pictures and these sightings? What's the motivations of the witnesses? Are they antagonistic? Did they not want to be a witness, and yet they can't unsee what they saw?
Yeah,
It's all important factors.
we've come. There's a few of those that will not, that are pretty honest about what they saw,
Yeah.
but will not risk a professional reputation, and that's a shame.
Yeah.
And the same goes for actual footage as well.
Yes.
That's out there, and photographs that I've and other members of the team have begged to use these photographs, but we're not allowed to publish them, which is a real shame, because there's some considerable,
Evidence.
weight, in those images. However, in the end of the day, it's only an image, and it can always be disputed, which is, we've said before.
Look at Todd. Look at Todd.
Look at Todd Standing, yeah. I mean,
The greatest hoaxer who ever lived, or the best Bigfoot researcher there ever was. It's only one or the other. It can't be either or. So he's either completely blatant and pulled off a very convincing hoax, enough to fool Bindernagel and Meldrum and all those guys, or he's just the best researcher there ever was, and he's really found it. He just presents badly.
yeah.
We don't really know, and these are the issues right there. And we talked before, I think, about what if we find something. Well, could that be a really bad thing for us publicly? Because then you've got to go out publicly and be vilified, be discredited, because it's just normal for people to say, "What are these guys up to? What are they after? Financially, or how are they going to exploit this? What do they want from us? And why did they make this thing up?" So, from my perspective, I do really want to find something. But if I do, I'd be very cautious about the way I release it.
And heaven forbid that someone actually looking for evidence should find evidence, because that's
Guilty as charged.
that never happens. If that happens, then forget it. Just
But it's true. Yeah.
it has to be pure accident, and
It has to be an accident. Okay.
But at the same time, it has to be world-class photography, 4K,
Yeah, sure.
just stabilised footage.
Yeah.
And of course, you have to retain your composure. Don't panic.
Don't
panic. It's just a 7-foot hairy beast. Just keep the camera
Yeah.
still. Why are you running away?
It's never going to be good enough, though, is it?
No.
Photographic video evidence.
No, it's not. You need
But it's
to
all we've got, really.
Yeah, and I don't know how you feel about this, Darren, actually, but half of me, when I'm out there in the woods, wants to find something, and if it's dark, the other half of me hopes I don't.
Yeah.
Because what do you do? It's still an animal. I believe it's an animal anyway, and if you're out there in the woods and you're facing this, I told you I'm 5'9", I'm not a big guy, you're facing this 7-foot to 8-foot tall animal that's come upon you, that, as any animal can, that has to react when it's confronted. What's the situation going to be? What are you going to do?
Happens to me many a time. You get out there and you think, what am I doing here?
Yeah. Especially when you're solo.
Yeah,
If you're on
yeah,
your
when
own.
you're on your own, yeah.
It seems like such a good idea. I'm going to present this evidence.
If I ever get out alive.
An hour later, I want to go home. Really, this was a bad idea. I should have got some beers in the fridge, or a cup of coffee at home. It's cold.
I think.
Why am I doing this?
Yeah, going out trying. I don't drink, but going out trying a bit of Dutch courage could really help to stick the night out. You talk about that Cannock chase,
Yeah,
all these dogman sightings or werewolves or whatever, and Bigfoot and other creatures as well have been seen, and lots of weird goings on. Spend a night in that wood by yourself. You've got to have something backing you up. Whether it's a feeling that you're going to be okay regardless, or the excitement of the chase, or whatever it is, a bottle of whiskey. You need something. So I think we're out here today. Look, this is a really rural neighbourhood. You don't see habitations or houses hardly anywhere at all. After dark, if there was something out here, you would know about it. Even if you're walking with a torch or a headlight on your head, you still wouldn't see anything. Doesn't make something here. It doesn't prove anything. But it does say that there's environment, there's habitat.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you're right. Absolutely. Lost my train of thought. You were talking about something just then. Well, the darkness. I mean, even in somewhere like the Lake District, which is a massive tourist place, once the sun goes down,
Everybody goes in.
try driving around these country roads in the dark.
Yes,
It's a nightmare. So someone, if there's something out there, it can certainly traverse this countryside no problem.
And it's even, it's even the same where I am. I'm just outside of London, and there's so many green corridors. And as soon as you just get outside the centre, it's just fields and motorways and hills. You have to take a train a couple of miles out, and you see it. You see it, and I often, when I'm on a train there, I often get my little camera out and see how long I can go without seeing a house. Sometimes it's a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes. Trains travelling at speed. We're just outside of London. So there is habitat there. There are routes and paths. It's a difficult theory to place on anybody. It's a big ask. If you ask people, do you believe there could be a British Bigfoot? We've got hundreds of sightings. We've got a few bits of evidence now, like footprints and Bigfoot Tony's tree pusher and things like that. It's still a big ask, even for somebody who's in this genre, because it's an unknown phenomenon. It's hard to imagine something we haven't discovered yet. But I think that's the world we live in. We've just got to conceptualize it properly to see that we're not out here in the country walking across these, hills without the paths and without the country routes and the walkways. We don't do that. We stick to the paths. We go on nature walks within these regimented and regulated areas. We've got a couple of wild campers out there in the hills, and that's not really enough to find something. And this is where we are. Let's get out there, let's have a look and see what there is to find.
And it's no coincidence that those wild campers are now questioning what they've been seeing over the years out there on their own. And I think that's one of... Solo camping's great for the experience, but I think if you go into remote places like, say, Scotland and in the mountains, and in the Welsh mountains or somewhere like that, what happens if you see it on your own? So is it not an idea, well, particularly it's definitely an idea not to go alone, because you've got a witness that can corroborate what you've seen.
And you could get injured or anything.
And you can get injured, and he can hold your hand in the dark, which is useful.
We don't do that. But
no, we don't do that. No. Or drive your boat.
Captain
Like
Howe.
Always, if you're coming, if you're going to go away, if it's particularly in the boat, we've got a captain.
So when the wash was coming in, you turned perpendicular straight into the waves. It's like he knows.
Yeah,
he knows.
It's experience,
basically.
Experience.
If I would have been driving that boat, we would have been in the drink, cameras and all, straight away. As soon as that wash came, we would have gone over.
You'll lose your deposit.
Yeah.
You will lose.
Hey, I had that hanging over me as well,
exactly. £30. And Chris's thousands of pounds worth of cameras.
Yeah, don't do that.
He's not going to forgive me for that one. So what is it? I think, what are we looking at here? The main thing is it's anecdotal reports. So just that, it's a witness report. It's the same. If something criminal happens, you go to the police. You're an anecdotal witness. Yeah. You don't have the evidence. Normally, you might have the physical effects of what you've experienced. You go and you make a report, and they value you as a person, your complaint as a real thing. They investigate that. They don't just say, well, do you have a photo? Do you have a body? Do you have evidence? They say, okay, so you were assaulted. Tell us about it. Now we investigate. And it's the same thing with anything that's anecdotal. So we've got these reports, we've got these sightings of Bigfoot and lake monsters and whatever else, mystery flyers, and we go and we investigate the report, the area, see if there's anything in what's being said. Is it possible? Is there an environment to sustain things like this? And most of the time, I think the answer is yes. Yes, there is.
Well, in next week, I'm hoping to interview Steve Meara. Steve Meara's been around paranormal for something like 25 years. So, the supernatural. So, a lot of my questions to Steve will be, I will be looking at the cases that were more in that vein, just to see what he thinks, what his perspective is on that, and also looking at if he's got anything that falls into our
camp.
Because I'm sure it works both ways. And is it, again, I know we talked about the supernatural and the flesh and blood, and right now there's not a whole lot you can say about it, is there really? I mean,
how do you investigate it? I mean, there are ways. People have got their little guides and machines and their monitors to pick up is it the EKG or whatever they call it. I'm referencing Ghostbusters. I don't know anything about it actually.
EMF meters.
EMF meters. So there's there's a science behind it as well. But what does it prove exactly? I think proving the paranormal is much harder than proving the unknown creatures of cryptozoology. And there seems to be some crossover with some sightings, but I often wonder if that's about perception. Now, is it a superstitious thing? Do we put our own perceptions onto these things that we're seeing? It doesn't mean that we hallucinate something that doesn't happen. Our interpretation has changed somewhat as to what the origination of this thing was.
Yeah, definitely. You've definitely got to mention that. You've got to consider that before the skeptics do.
Yeah.
Because we never consider anything like that. We don't even think about it.
No,
we're straight on. We're straight down. That's a monster. I know exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Can I prove it? No.
Yeah.
Don't need to prove it.
The funny thing and the great thing, it's both good and bad about the cryptozoology community as well, and I'm sure it's the same in the paranormal community, is that the worst critics of the genre come from within it.
Yeah.
So actually, even before you get to any outside kind of skeptics, you've run the gauntlet of your own. And I think that's a good sort of clearing process. It's not always constructive, but it preps you to answer those types of questions, and to think of the kind of objections that people might have. And after all, we're not here to convince anybody of anything. We want to prove something, if it is indeed real. And if it isn't, then that will be the final result.